I'm afraid if she gets out, she will come after me and my brothers, my whole family.
Welcome to The Explainer, everyone. Today, we're diving into a case that is honestly as deeply unsettling as it is complex. We're going to break down the harrowing story of Kouri Richins. She was a Utah mother of 3 who presented herself to the entire world as this grieving widow and a supportive children's book author. But as we're going to see, the stark contrast between that carefully crafted public persona and the dark, dark reality of her crimes is just absolutely chilling. We'll be tracing the chronological events leading up to the murder, the guilty verdict in March of 2026, the intense legal sentencing process, and most importantly, the profound, devastating impact this has left on her 3 young sons. Section 1, Motives and the First Attempt. Let's get right into it. Okay, so to really understand how this whole tragedy unfolded, we have to look at the core motives laid out by the prosecution. Kouri Richins was working as a real estate agent running a house flipping business, and she was literally drowning in millions of dollars in debt. I mean, her financial life was essentially collapsing right around her. But at the exact same time, she was planning an entirely new future with another man. So to fund that fantasy future and dig her way out of that massive financial hole, she wove this incredible web of deceit. And a huge part of that included secretly opening numerous life insurance policies on her husband, Eric Richins. She did this completely without his knowledge, carefully setting the financial stage for what was to come. $4 million. To put that into perspective, that is the staggering value of Eric's estate that Kouri falsely believed she would just fully inherit upon his death. When you combine that crushing business debt with a perceived $4 million payout, well, you begin to see the terrifying arithmetic that set these events into motion. For Kouri, Eric's life basically became a clear obstacle to a massive financial windfall that she thought would solve all of her self-created problems. Now, it's absolutely crucial to realize this wasn't just some sudden cram of passion. There was a long, chilling prelude to the murder. Going back to before 2022, following her massive debt accumulation and secret affairs, she actually made a terrifying first attempt on Eric's life. On Valentine's Day in 2022, she gave him a fentanyl-laced sandwich that caused him to completely black out. He survived that time, but it was a horrifying warning sign of the escalation that would tragically culminate later that same year when she successfully executed her plan at their Park City home. She was then arrested the following year in 2023, and that ultimately led to the March 2026 jury verdict. Section 2, The Fatal Night. To really wrap our heads around the grotesque reality of this crime, we need to talk about the toxicity involved here. A standard lethal dose of fentanyl is incredibly small, right? It takes very little to be fatal. But prosecutors proved that Kouri laced Eric's cocktail with 5 times that lethal amount. 5 times. This massive overdose was not a mistake. It wasn't an accident. The sheer volume indicates a calculated certainty. She wanted to make absolutely sure there was no chance he would survive the night. Now, you might be wondering about her alibi. Well, Kouri's story stands in terrifying contrast to the reality experienced by her own middle child on the night of the murder. She claimed to the 911 operator that she had found her husband cold to the touch because she'd been safely sleeping in her 11-year-old's bed. However, that exact same 11-year-old's memory actively refutes her story. He vividly recalled a locked parent's bedroom door, a blaring television to mask whatever was happening inside, and his mother actively yelling at him to go away when he tried to find comfort. And the specific details from that 11-year-old boy they're absolutely heartbreaking. He remembered the highly unusual and unsettling circumstances of that night. He was put to bed early without even being given a bath, and later on when he needed his mother, the parents' bedroom door was locked tight. He literally had to use a broom to try and reach a key just to get his mother's attention, only to be yelled at and turned away. It perfectly paints the bizarre, tense, and just deeply unnatural environment leading up to her eventual 911 call. Section 3. The bizarre aftermath and legal sentencing. Okay, this part is just wild. Shortly before her arrest in 2023, Kouri Richins actually published and went on a whole media tour to publicly promote a children's book. And the subject of that book? A young boy coping with the death of his father. The startling contrast between the brutal reality of what she did and her choice to write and actively profit from a book about a child grieving the very father she murdered. I mean, it's a detail that completely stunned investigators and the public alike. It reveals a level of psychological detachment that is just deeply, deeply unsettling. Well, fast forward to March of 2026, and the jury saw right through the deceit.
They convicted her on 5 serious felony counts. We're talking aggravated murder for the fatal dose that finally killed Derek, attempted murder for that Valentine's Day sandwich poisoning, alongside insurance fraud and forgery. And just to compound the gravity of her deception, it's worth noting she also faces over 24 separate money-related charges in an entirely different case that hasn't even gone to trial yet.
So, what does this all mean for her sentence? The stakes here are immense. While her aggravated murder conviction carries a minimum penalty range of 25 years to life in prison, the prosecution's explicit request is much harsher. They want life in prison without the possibility of parole. Now, while prosecutors aren't seeking the death penalty, they are pushing with everything they have to ensure she never walks free again. In adding a really heavy, tragic, symbolic weight to the whole thing, the sentencing hearing itself was scheduled to fall on the very day that would have been Eric's 44th birthday. Which brings us to Section 4, the children's plea. The direct, devastating human toll of this crime falls so heavily on the 3 young boys left behind. Her oldest son, who's now 13, stated plainly to the judge that he does not miss his mom. He said, "I think she would come and take us and not do good things to us, like hurt us." And this fear, it isn't abstract and it isn't unfounded. Prosecutors actually submitted sealed court documents containing findings from the Utah Division of Child and Family Services, alleging that this young boy suffered profound emotional and physical abuse from his mother in the terrible aftermath of his father's death.
Then there's the 11-year-old middle child, the one who stood outside that locked door with a broom that night. He shared this profound grief with the judge, expressing deep, agonizing sadness over losing the dad who was supposed to coach him in sports, take him fishing, celebrate his birthdays, and teach him how to drive. For him, justice is entirely about safety now. He wrote, "With her in jail, I will be able to continue to feel safe and live a happy and successful life without fear."
And finally, we have the heartbreaking words of the youngest boy. He was just a preschooler when his dad died. His statement reveals such a heavy burden for someone so incredibly young. He told the court that he feels hateful and ashamed when people talk about his mom because, in his words, she took away my dad. Just like his older brothers, his only path forward to peace is her incarceration. He stated, "Once she is gone, I will feel happy and I will feel safer and relaxed and trust people more." So that brings us to the end of our explainer today, and I want to leave you with a thought to really ponder. When you step back and look at the entirety of this timeline, the secret debts, the calculated poisoning, the locked doors, and the profound trauma inflicted on 3 young boys, you really have to ask yourself, how does a mother author a children's book on grief while simultaneously acting as the very architect of it? It's a haunting question about human betrayal that's going to linger long after the gavel falls. Thank you so much for joining me to walk through the facts of this case. Keep seeking to understand the details, and I'll catch you in our next explainer.